All right, here we go. Tuesday night. Let's go. Yes, folks, what a day. And the controversy just continues. It is really amazing. In just a moment, we're going to let everybody settle in a little bit. And then, hi there, Janet Dwyer. We're going to bring in Nicole Salas, who was in Barrington last night. I just want to set this up. And again, we're live right now on Facebook and X and YouTube. I think it's amazing. I'm not surprised that the rest of the media, our local media, is basically ignoring the story that, thanks to Nicole, has really rocketed. My old station down the dial, because the station manager lives in Barrington, was given an edict, and plus the teachers unions don't talk about that story. But what's developing on this Tuesday night, and again, I want to give credit to Nicole, is it's one thing the teacher that's on paid leave, but the new development now is this idiot coach, right? The coach of the trans team that stepped up and decided to, first of all, I was told by people that it was handed to him as he was in fact arriving in Barrington last night for this school committee town meeting, where suddenly they handed to him this element. There he is. I also heard from someone that used to coach with him, and what I was told by this person that knows him and has worked with him, that said that the telltale sign of this Jeff Turner was when he said that Charlie Kirk is a provocateur. And this guy, who I have dealt with in the past, said, I've known this guy for a really long time. There's no way he wrote that. And as I explained to you folks, I've seen enough people that when you give a speech, it's one thing you have your notes and you write it out, and you can tell the difference of that, because it's really a guide and like a fallback in case you lose your place or forget exactly what you're saying, but not this. And I love how Rudy Giuliani, again, and the libs of TikTok, because of Nicole, have picked up on this, that he basically was saying, this teacher was within his right because of the things that Charlie Kirk said. And one thing that I really just want to stress to you as everyone is filing in, and I don't mind that we're the only ones going after this Barrington story. Of course, it was written by the union. But the part that, and I want to hear Nicole, because she was there and she actually filmed it. We've also had the students that have come out, talked about it. Very brave, courageous students. But what also stood out to me that I think I want you to realize, and I was playing some of his audio earlier, but for him to say, think about this just for a moment, by placing this nut teacher on leave, right? Ben Philo, by placing him on leave, it's chilling. Were her word, freedom of speech, chilling to teachers' freedom of speech. As I said earlier, what's chilling about freedom of speech is not this teacher being placed on leave. What's chilling was that Charlie Kirk was brutally assassinated and gunned down for. That's the chilling effect of freedom of speech. Everyone around the country is saying, we can't have, maybe we shouldn't have an outdoor rally. Maybe you shouldn't have a rally where people can speak outside. That's the chilling part, not placing someone on leave. So folks, she is a force. She is a superstar. She was there last night. And let me just remove him. What a clown. He is the Tim Waltz of Rhode Island. You could totally tell he was just reading it. This is very dangerous. Teachers have to, imagine that. Teachers have to think before they post videos. What a new concept. Listen, it's inappropriate. It was hateful. It was wrong. What that teacher in Barrington, the real part of that video was, he hates President Trump. He hated Charlie Kirk. And he was dancing on his grave. And he was glad. You're not in heaven. Oh, well, Charlie, bye. That wasn't free. That's not freedom of speech. By their design, that's hate speech. She was there last night, folks, leading the charge. There she is. And my friend Nicole. Nicole, good evening. What an amazing 24 hours since you went, videotaped, and then just started posting.
Hi, John. I can't believe it. I'm so happy this is getting the attention it deserves. And I think you hit it right on the head. These people still hate Charlie Kirk, and they say that he was a racist, he was a bigot, he was a transphobe. First of all, that is all not true. There are plenty of videos disproving that. But I want to bring up a very important point that I think is really lost on the left, which is, even if you were right, first of all, you're not right. Charlie Kirk was not racist. But even if he were racist, that doesn't matter, because even racists don't deserve to be shot and killed. And the fact that these people keep saying, but he was a provocateur, but he was bigoted, but it doesn't matter. No one deserves to die for their positions, for their perceived positions. And then the fact that this teacher said, this was my favorite part. I'm sorry, that this coach said, every teacher will think twice about expressing an opinion, speaking truth to power, which is very teacher union talk, truth to power, not just in their own time, but in the classroom as well. Yes, good. That is the goal, to have every teacher think twice before they influence a student with their politics and their opinion. Thank you. Because guess what? The free speech of teachers is not the most important thing in a school. It's the free speech of students. It's the freedom of students to be educated without indoctrination. So I was just aghast that the teachers union came, and that all these teachers came to stand up for themselves like they were the victim. It was unbelievable, the separate reality that people live in.
If the gunman were a member of the teachers union, they'd ask he be placed on administrative leave instead of, firing. Nicole, what was it like, though? Because what I like, and despite of all of that, boy, there were some profiles and courage with those students. That young girl, the three guys that got up, that was really remarkable that you were able to capture that.
I had no idea students were going to speak. They were calm. They were resolute. They had so much grace. It is so, you look at them and you think, wow, they're just so calm. It looks like they're not bothered at all. I imagine their hearts were racing. They're in a room full of adults. They had to walk by a gauntlet of teachers who they already heard defend this other teacher. I mean, that was absolutely amazing. I have some people on my Twitter saying, hey, let's set up a fundraiser for these kids for a college fund. And so I started messaging people saying, hey, what do the parents think about this? I mean, these kids deserve to be rewarded because they are exposing a rot in this education system. It is not easy to be the whistleblower. And I hope these children are really rewarded for what they did, because that is true courage. And most adults don't have that kind of courage.
What was the mood in the room? Because people need to understand, you're a student. It's very intimidating where here are these teachers, and they want everyone to go along saying, oh, he's a great teacher. He's hardworking. He deserves freedom of speech. That to me, you want to talk about chilling effect and suppressing speech. That's what you saw by the teachers union in Barrington last night.
Yeah. Basically, I don't care if you're the best, most popular guy in the room. Sometimes we make mistakes, and those mistakes are going to define your career, and they're going to make or break you. And if you're an adult, you got to take accountability for that. Look, this guy's not dead. He didn't get shot like Charlie Kirk. You're going to be okay if you become unemployed and you have to, find a new job. You're going to be okay because you're still alive. And we need to show the kids in this school district and all around the country that we are going to live in a civil society where your speech has consequences. Yes. And these kids need to feel safe in this school district, knowing that they don't have to be around adults that have this kind of moral depravity, and that there will be consequences for that. Because if we don't have consequences for this kind of behavior, these kids are going to grow up and they're going to act like that too. And they're going to say, well, this is how people act. And we don't want the next generation doing this. We need to stop this now.
You know what else, Nicole? What, and I know there were different speakers, but that coach saying, it's not the responsibility of the school district. Young kids need to learn that sometimes, adults can use strong language, and that's part of, they have to be able to overcome that, and that can be something that they have to deal with, and that's not a matter of that. This guy was gloating. This Ben Philo, which the local media, by the way, we're not disclosing his name. That's by design. That's ludicrous. They know who it is. The Providence Journal, that story was embarrassing. He allegedly made the TikTok. But the fact of the matter is, young people, this was the coach now, they have to realize that adults sometimes are going to use harsh language. That's not what this is. This isn't freedom of speech. This isn't a teacher is at a backyard cookout or in the teacher's room can't talk about something. This is someone making a video and putting it out to the world. Ha ha, I'm gloating over the death, the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
And coming from the people who are punishing students if you say him instead of her, the people who say that if you call me by a different pronoun, I'm going to die. These are the same people now saying, oh, you can handle it if you hear some words you don't like. Oh, really? Because 5 minutes ago, you were saying that words matter so much. We have to discipline kids. People are going to die. These people have no principles. They have no consistency. And it is not up to the children to constantly walk on eggshells around insane, incoherent people who just want what they want whenever they want it. They are petulant children. They do not have a consistent principle when it comes to freedom of speech, when it comes to anything regarding children. No. And then they go ahead and blame the kids. He actually said that these kids were shaken up over some mild words. Mild words? This was a watershed moment in American history. This was an event on a scale of trauma with 9/11, JFK's assassination. And then now teachers are saying, oh, it's no big deal to make fun of it. You know what would happen to you if you made fun of JFK getting shot in the moment after JFK got shot? Thankfully, we're not a very violent society, but you would have gotten beaten up if you said something like that publicly. And now they're blaming the kids because they feel uncomfortable with teachers that exhibit this kind of moral depravity. I mean, it is just shameful that they blamed the kids. That was so terrible.
Let's go even more recent. Imagine if someone had mocked George Floyd's death, when you have the mayor of Minneapolis crying at the casket at the wake and everything we had to live through. Nicole, touch on, because I thought this was really important, that young girl that got up and said she wanted her topic. I think it was like a final paper of the semester. It was a big project. She wanted to do a paper on transgender sports and how boys should not be playing in girls' sports. And I thought, she talked about 45 minutes, that teacher, he's placed on administrative leave, Ben Philo, 45 minutes, basically trying to tell her, pick another topic. Yet he had no problem with another student that did one on, abortion is great, pro-abortion, abortion should be free for everyone. I thought her talking about, what I loved about that student, her perspective, was she picked up on the fact he was basically trying to intimidate her not to do that topic.
Absolutely. She said that he tried to tell her that you should write it in a way so you don't hurt other people's feelings. Well, that's funny. I just heard 5 minutes ago that we're supposed to be resilient when we hear things that offend us. Then she said that they had a meeting with another teacher with her to try to fix her wrong think and her viewpoint on this matter. And she stood strong. She didn't change. She didn't change what she wanted to write. She wrote her essay, but who knows what grade she got on it? Who knows, how that bias worked against her. So these are the stories that kids are afraid to tell that is happening in the classroom. And I imagine a lot of kids, they just don't want to deal with it. They can just put this teacher aside. But these are the stories we need to hear, because those are lawsuits that we can file, because the only way we're going to win this battle is with lawsuits that let teachers and schools know that we're not going to tolerate this. And I hope more students come forward to talk about when there is bias in the classroom, because we need to fix that. And we can't keep it a secret just because we're scared. I hope more students are going to be strong now that they saw these wonderful examples at that meeting last night.
You know, it's funny, Nicole. I received an email from a mother today saying that her son, I won't say what school district, he's a junior in high school. He won't talk about baseball because he knows his teacher is a big Yankee fan. And, you know, the son's a Red Sox fan. The intimidation of a teacher laying down the law. Charlie Kirk is evil. He's a racist. He's a homophobe. He's full of hate. You know, think of the power dynamic that is involved. But touch on a little bit. I can't believe these people. First of all, these are my words, everyone, not Nicole. That guy is a stooge, this coach, to get up. Oh, okay, I'll read this. I'm the coach. And I love, he said, you know, I don't know this guy. My kids went through the school. Well, if you don't know him, then what are you talking about? But what was the reaction when he finished? The embarrassment of those people clapping for him.
Yeah, I believe those people clapping were teachers, or at least employees of the school district. They were all kind of like in one corner. I was standing right next to NEA people in their shirts. The room was tense and very quiet the entire time. Everyone had on their poker faces. Everyone was also filming. I mean, there were, I think, like half a dozen cameras in the room, at least, that I could see. And then there are people holding their phones that you can't see. So I think everyone sensed that this was going to be a big deal. But, you know, that coach saying that stuff was just so astounding, because you really have to believe in what you're saying when you walk in that room and you see all those cameras, because you know that you're going to be boosted and amplified on social media. If it were me and I walked in that room and I saw everyone recording me, I would have been like, nah, I don't need to die on this hill. This is way too big a deal. But these people, that's how much they believe in it. They were willing to risk their reputation because they already had that teacher, Ben Philo, as an example. And they still walked in there. This is how ideologically extreme these people are. They still can't read the room, and they still just go for it no matter what.
And Nicole, because you put out that, boy, someone with a big following, Rudy Giuliani, he came out swinging about the coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was amazing. You know, like, to have other leaders in our country see what we are seeing, and they take the effort to say, this is wrong. This is not how our schools should be operating. And I also want to touch on exactly why it's wrong, because we have a lot of misunderstanding about free speech and how this applies to public school and government employees. Teachers have a limited freedom of speech because they are government employees. Your free speech as a teacher is limited to how it impacts the classroom, even when your speech is personal, even when it's on your private page in your personal time. If you say something that's going to impact the learning environment negatively, and it's going to make students feel like they can't learn and they feel unsafe, you can be fired. So everything you're reading on Twitter about, like, oh, I got free speech, and oh, Republicans, they're such hypocrites with free speech. No, this has been like this forever. Well, I mean, there's a case that established it, but this is not new. And what's going on is you have teachers that are just going out there bloviating about something they clearly don't understand. I'm sorry, isn't this an educational environment? How many people, raise your hand, can just like look it up? You're a teacher, right? Maybe you can educate yourself on like your own rights in the workplace. But here they are going up there saying this is free speech, it's going to be chilled. No, this is your limited free speech, right? You infringed upon it. We have the evidence because the students said that they felt like they were uncomfortable when they're Christian around this teacher and in this school. They said that they felt like they couldn't learn, something like that. I mean, that's the evidence. The investigation the school wants to do is to uncover evidence like that. And I say, why waste our money on this outside third-party investigator? We can see that the learning environment is impacted. And it's going to be impacted for years to come, because you are going to have parents that enroll their kids. They're going to find this video. It's going to be 5 years later. They may not know everything happening now. And they're going to say, well, what the heck is this? And the school's going to have to relitigate it all over again. So this is an eternal liability.
How was it with some of the Barrington? Let's start with some of the parents that maybe came and spoke out last night that had a problem and were condemning and maybe even saying that the teacher should be fired, Ben Philo.
Yeah, these are parents. They obviously care deeply about their kids' education. They care about having a safe educational environment. You have to wait a long time to talk. And I thought all these parents were very well spoken when they explained why that, you know, this is not what they're signing up for when they send their kids to school. There was even one parent who talked about how she found other videos of this teacher I mean, this is unrelated, but it kind of just shows the poor judgment of these people that are in charge of our kids, or at least this one teacher. He was driving, filming himself. And that's another danger in society that we don't need. Whether you're going to lose your job over that, I don't know, but it's just kind of like building up the evidence. So I was really happy that all these parents came out. I wasn't sure what the turnout was going to be, but it was very much teachers defending teachers and students and parents saying, we don't want this guy in this school anymore.
Nicole, I didn't get a chance to hear, or I want to really give you a chance to talk about your impression of the two TikToks that I'm aware of. One is the one where he's basically dancing on his grave and calling Charlie Kirk garbage. And then there's the second one where he's saying, hey, he's not in heaven. He met his maker. He's not in heaven. Just take me through your thoughts on this teacher, this Ben Philo, who, by the way, Channel 10 did go to his house last night. They won't say his name. They said, we're not sure it was him, but we heard a voice through the door saying no comment. I think that can confirm, boy, talk about what happened to the investigative reporters. Where have you gone, Jim Taricani? If you think you're at his house and a voice is saying no comment, I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that's probably him. But what did you think when you saw these videos of him mocking Charlie Kirk and the death?
First of all, if you're someone who's going to make a video, that's how you spend your free time, to be mocking a father and a husband who was assassinated for his free speech and his opinion that you disagree with. Just the fact that you go out of your way to make that video in your free time tells me that there's something wrong with you, regardless of what you say in it. Like, why are you doing this? Secondly, people are arguing about whether, he just had an opinion, right? The coach said that it was almost entirely factual, which of course is wrong. But he said in the video, this is what happens to Charlie Kirk by Charlie. Those phrases are celebration. So was he like jumping up and down and being like, some really crazy people? No, but those are words of celebration. You are happy. So all these people saying, he didn't do anything wrong. He was just giving an opinion. Wrong. No, you're totally denying that he's celebrating it. And again, the fact that you're, going through what a bad guy is, even if you don't say those phrases, celebrate it, the fact that you're talking about what a bad guy he is, the implication is he deserved it. And that is all celebration as well. And then the second video where, what did he say? Oh, right. So then he made a second video because he deleted the first one. I went to go look for it on his TikTok. And this second video, this was supposed to be the better one. This was supposed to be the damage control. This was supposed to be the apology. But in it, he says, Charlie Kirk did not go to heaven and he met his maker. Or I think he said he did not meet his maker or something like that. Oh my God, this is so vicious and depraved. Like, what are you getting out of this video as a person? I can understand why a child who, gave comment the other night said, my family is Christian and I don't feel safe. I don't want to have this teacher. I don't feel comfortable around you. Imagine if he said this about Islam. If he said, God forbid you say something about Muhammad, why do people feel like you can just degrade Christians who die like this? The behavior is unacceptable. And then there was another parent, I don't know if you caught this, who commented on a comment that this teacher wrote. And the comment was, I'm going to paraphrase. I think it was a comment on the teacher's own video. And it said, can't get abortions because you'll run out of kids to diddle.
Oh my God.
And that's written there. You can find it on my Twitter. It's not clear exactly what he's talking about. My opinion is I believe what he's saying is that the reason why Republicans are against abortion is because there won't be enough kids to sexually abuse. Oh my God. Wow. I mean, that is a huge risk to just be talking about sexual abuse like that on your TikTok as a teacher, because God knows what interpretations people are going to ascribe to that. And then secondly, he said that parents, Republican parents, he said a certain political Republican parents, they're so concerned about what goes into their kids' bodies with vaccines, with of course you're concerned about what kind of medical treatment your kid gets. You love your kid. And he says, but He goes, when it comes to the penises, who talks like that? When it comes to the penises of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, they don't give a F-U-C-K. What? Republican parents don't give a F-U-C-K about what again? Like, I mean, I had to listen to that video and I was like, what the heck is he talking about? And so he's demonizing Republican parents. Even if you didn't say anything about Charlie Kirk, that video alone, I think, is damning, because I could never then walk into a parent meeting with a teacher after I saw that video. I'm Republican. Oh, you don't think I care if my kid's sexually abused? I'm sorry. You're teaching what now to my kid? How am I supposed to respect you in a safe environment? Unbelievable.
Nicole, how were they last night? The union people obviously know who you are. How were they towards you last night?
Okay, so I didn't know that I was standing like right next to, you know, the NEA like weirdo uniform thing they do. So for people that don't know, whenever there's some school committee meeting, the NEA acts like, you know, a military. They send out an email and they're like, call to action, everyone, come on, we're going to go to this meeting. They did it to me in the meeting with me, and you get there and you see like this sea of a certain color shirt. They look like weird.
They all wear the same t-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so childish, right? They look like they're on a sports team here. And so the room was super crowded when I got in. It was, first of all, it was in way too small a room. I think they did that on purpose. Sure. And so I had to kind of inch in, and I just get in to stand there. And it wasn't until I sort of accidentally bumped up against someone that he's like, oh, do you need enough room? And I see like the NEA, and, you know, they know who I am. They've been in litigation with me for 4 or 5 years.
Very much.
Yeah. Yes. So, you know, what I do is I just don't say anything to these people. I don't want anything to do with you because I've had enough to do with you for the past 4 years. And I don't buy all the, you know, the little nice, like, oh, you okay? You need more. It's just like, it's childish. So I was surprised that they didn't say anything, though. I mean, they came all dressed up. I don't know why they didn't give their little speech, but, you know, public comment.
I thought someone in the beginning, who's the co-chair of the Union of Barrington, stepped up and said they've asked the teacher, Ben Philo, who's co-chair, to step down. And it almost seems like they were trying to me, show the school committee that, you know, we're taking action. He's not going to be a union rep anymore. So I don't know if you were there for that, but I want to come back to Nicole. You know, that speech that the coach, again, it was written for him. It was presented to him. They got him. They're looking for someone. They didn't want, you know, one of the union members. We're going to have this guy, you know, he's a coach. He's like a Tim Waltz type, but he was basically intimating. And that's why I'm so glad that Rudy Giuliani called him out. He's basically intimating like, hey, let's keep in mind, you know, Charlie Kirk could be provocative. This guy was within his bounds. The real damage here would be chilling freedom of speech of teachers. Nicole, that is so off. This is with if you're a teacher and this happened, this is an opportunity to talk to children and explain how vile this is, how unacceptable this is, that Charlie Kirk was there to have a conversation. This should reignite schools having, you know, debate teams and mock trial and reinforcing the listening to the other side. That's not what I heard last night. What this teacher and Barrington and the union, what they're basically, and you and I both know, their message is that you are to be silenced. If you are speaking and saying a message that we don't agree with, you're to be silenced. That's how they operate.
Yeah. And speaking of the debate team, I have been informed, I haven't verified it, that so there was another speaker there who was a woman teacher who was the debate team advisor, or, you know, debate team coach, whatever her title is. And she also defended the teacher. And then someone else told me that the debate team advisor is actually the wife of this guy, Jeff Turner. So, I mean, I kind of question now, how are these kids debating? Like, how is that being influenced? And the other thing I wanted to say was like, look, if these union teachers really think that their free speech was infringed, fine, go litigate it. You go file your First Amendment lawsuit like you made all of us do when you guys suppressed our speech about COVID and vaccines and BLM and gendered pronouns. They debanked us. They kicked us off of social media, and we had to go to court. So fine, you go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on your union attorneys. You go file your little First Amendment lawsuit, and you're going to lose. And you put your money where your mouth is, because that is how we do it in this country. That's how you made us do it. We learned your game. We know your rules. So game on. Go do it yourself and see how much you like it.
I still can't get past, the coach, his speech, though. See, to me, that was very insightful, because that's the argument that the union, that's their talking points that they're trying to put out. That, this is a matter, kids need to learn. This is, again, their message. Kids need to learn that they're going to hear some things they may not like. That's an adult thing. It's all part of maturing. That's not what this is. What Barrington, and I don't know what Barrington's going to do, but what people, to me, this should really be a focal point of what's going on in the classroom. Can you imagine being in this guy's class last fall, and it's a social studies? I would think they're discussing the presidential election. What if he said, raise your hand if you're planning on voting for Trump? I mean, with this type of person, who would do that? And I also come back to, and this, again, local media is absent on this, but I've heard from people, what is it about, what is going on that this teacher who's on paid leave, that he felt comfortable on putting it out? He has told one of his neighbors in Cranston, who I know, that members of the union were telling him they thought they had no problem with the video that he put mocking Charlie Kirk. To me, that's more the fundamental issue, which is they're actually suppressing speech. They're trying to intimidate kids. Those kids last night, especially then those 3 boys that got up, Nicole, I thought they were great. And that is, as you said, that is not easy in a room full of adults like that.
Yeah, they were fantastic. And they took all of the claims head on, and they said he was not racist. Charlie Kirk was not racist. He was not a bigot. He was not this bad guy. And I think the adults need to hear that they are not fooling the kids. The kids can see through you. And I think that the kids are going to be all right. You've seen that a lot on Twitter, where they say, you know what? I think this next generation gets it. And they're not just going to be this easily indoctrinated. And you're right that we need to educate kids about free speech. We need to educate them about what truly chills free speech, because what truly chills it are people acting like savages and saying that they're happy when their political opponent is slaughtered. That is what kills free speech. And we also have to teach our kids that free speech is not absolute. There are consequences for it. And we can't let our kids feel like it's just this like nebulous thing that you throw around whenever you have a political statement to make. It's not just like a free speech button you push all the time. Your free speech is regulated in a variety of different circumstances. And especially here, again, teachers have limited free speech. Your personal conduct and your speech, if it impacts the learning environment, it is a fireable offense. Whether Barrington will do it, I don't know. I sure hope so. But if they don't, I just want to throw this out there. I was made aware that it could be possible. I don't know. I haven't looked into this myself. This is not legal advice. But if we have students that are Christian and they feel like they are no longer in a safe environment because of not only the video, but the fallout from the video. Remember, this all affects the learning environment. They may have an Office of Civil Rights complaint to file. So, there's more going on here than just the free speech of the teacher. What's the most important thing here is the education of the children and the learning environment.
Yeah. And a totally different subject. There's a headline today. The Department of Justice is going to investigate the actions of the Providence schools. It's totally racially decided of how they were making decisions. And of course, no surprise, those that are Caucasian were not able to benefit in certain things. But Nicole, I want to come back to just what else? So many people want to know, how can they follow you? Do you plan to do any appearances? What did you say? I know you went to the candlelight vigil at the State House Friday night. If you don't mind sharing a little bit of that.
Yeah, the candlelight vigil was put on by the Turning Point USA chapter led by Anthony Delana, and also the Blexit chapter led by Jessica. Oh, she's Jessica Marie on Facebook. I can't remember her last name.
That's okay.
And they did a wonderful job at the State House. They had a bunch of speakers. They asked me to speak on the fly. Thank God I did it without crying. But it was really beautiful because people came together and they all said, we're not going to tolerate political violence. We came here to remember Charlie, and people told some good stories about him. And now they're happening all across the country. And I'm also flying out to Arizona so I can go to the Charlie Kirk vigil myself. That's happening on Sunday. Yeah,
Wow.
I just feel compelled. I got to go. You know, Charlie Kirk, when my speech was being just suppressed 4 years ago, when I sent public records requests, Charlie Kirk actually covered what happened to me. He had a 5-minute segment on his show. And he said that every mother in the country needs to send public records requests to their school to uncover the political indoctrination. And that was a really big deal for me, because when you have a leader in the country like that acknowledge that what you're doing matters and it's important, that was something that really helped me not feel isolated and alone. And I think especially now that we see that conservatives are targets of political violence, you know, we can either feel isolated and alone all over again, or we can look at Charlie Kirk and say, he's the light. He's the one that is going to live forever. They're never going to suppress his voice or ours. And so that's a big reason why I'm going out there, because I really feel like I have to honor him for all the work he did.
You know, one more thing before we let you go. You know, when this first happened, you and I spoke and we talked about, as much as some media want to suppress it, there is a transgender angle here. And the more we're learning about this, and especially the messages between the two of them, and you have the shooter calling his boyfriend who's trans, who's going through the process, you know, my love and that type of thing. The part about that people, I get a lot of people, especially our local media, some media, they don't like it, but it shows motive. And what I took away for those that heard the press conference where they were reading the text messages between the shooter and his roommate was he actually did it to kind of impress the roommate. And they were in, you know, the FBI is investigating this Discord chat that they were in, that the trans group that we're in were like, you know, we did it. I'm sure that didn't come up in Barrington, but this is maybe a little bit of a topic for another time, but I think, and it's something you've talked about, and a lot of people don't want to broach it, but it's very confusing to young people, let alone you have one who's transitioning to become a woman. Then you have the shooter's boyfriend who's got to be like confused about it. I just feel it's something that shouldn't be swept under the rug. And whatever the motive was, whatever their community, what people need to understand is it's not an invasion of their privacy. We're into this weird dynamic when you have people like that teacher who's on paid leave saying he's, you know, homophobe, and Jen Lima saying he's transphobe and all this other stuff. You know, that stuff, if it hits the wrong person, we saw what can happen with something like this.
That's right. You know, I think the connection that maybe you're trying to articulate or highlight is that this transgender cult is a, you know, especially when we see with Antifa, I think that's something that's important to bring up too. Antifa has this like transgender terrorist cell where this is being reported on. This is not a conspiracy theory. Andy No, who's his last name NGO on Twitter, he's been reporting on it for years. Yes. They are terrorist cells that are focused on killing people who don't believe in transgenderism, especially when it comes to kids. And I think what you have to remember is that transgenderism says that that up is down, boys are girls, girls are boys. And when you adopt a mentality that denies reality, you then end up rejecting the morality of reality. And you are one step away from saying, you know, a boy can be a girl can be a boy, and also killing is good, and hate is so bad I must murder. I think we underestimate the mentality that evolves from rejecting reality, because once you separate yourself from the reality that we all live in, your morality becomes warped. And then on top of that, you're giving these people, steroids that then also warp their brains and their bodies. And then you then point the target at people and say, and oh, by the way, the enemy is that way. There you go. That's where you can take out your rage.
Folks, she is Nicole Solis. Nicole, you are just amazing. You have fans. You're gaining even more fans. I know you're busy and you have young kids. Listen, it's so good to talk to you. You are a force of nature. Keep up the good work. And I know I'll talk to you tomorrow and we'll talk again.
Okay. Thanks, John, for having me.
All right, folks, there it is. Isn't she amazing? She is one of a kind, Nicole Solis. I want to also, and I will talk a little bit, folks. What happened last night, and there's Suzanne and Ginger and Ron. Isn't she? She is just amazing. But this guy that got up, this coach, Jeff Turner, and basically, I'm so glad because of Nicole, there's Caroline, Rudy Giuliani took to social media to point it out. Basically, this guy reading a prepared speech was essentially saying, Charlie Kirk had it coming. He was a provocateur. And this is what can happen. And these kids in Barrington that feel that somehow, this teacher said something, they need to learn adversity. And they need to learn that sometimes adults can that's not what this is, as Nicole said. I can't, it's one thing. Thank you, WP. Isn't she great? She is just remarkable. She is awesome. Oh my God, folks. And again, what's also amazing is she is just such a superstar. She is. In local media, I'll just mention, for the most part, the TV stations and so forth, they have a media blackout on Nicole Solis, who is fearless and is just fantastic. I did hear the vigil last night. It was a great show. I'm glad. That young man, Ryan, I may have him on at some point. Can you imagine, Caroline? I mean, this type of thing going on in the school, but it's one thing that the teacher made these videos. He felt comfortable making them. But what I come back to is it's the aftermath of these individuals who then were running cover for him. And as Nicole said, and the union members trying to run cover for him. And this is about, this is chilling freedom of speech. Now, there he is. And I know that courage is contagious. Yep. I think it has. I think it has. And I want to be very clear. Listen, this is on the Barrington School website. Why is the media afraid to put that up? It's one thing that he made those videos. It's so appalling. People like this stooge gets up and then just tries to defend it. And under the guise of, Charlie Kirk would say some pretty provocative things and therefore, it's kind of warranted and he was just speaking the truth. And as Nicole said, that's union verbiage. He was speaking truth to power. So you're right, Amy. What an absolute disgrace that guy is. So they were great, Angie. Weren't they fantastic? Oh my God. And I want to be very clear, folks. I mean, you're exactly right, Garni. This is a situation, I want you to just, step back for a moment. To me, with what happened with Charlie Kirk, this should not be a Republican Democrat type of thing. This first and foremost should be freedom of speech. He's there, peaceful, having a conversation. Listen, I get that whether it's the Barrington coach or whether it's the teacher, I get that a lot of them would not, be happy about it. Guess what? They don't have to go. They don't have to go. That's right. That's exactly right. They didn't like it because Charlie told the truth. That's a thought, Ryan, but, well, that's all right. It can happen sometimes. It happens when we get big groups. Um, and I know the people in Barrington don't like the reaction that the assassination of Charlie Kirk has had. You can see a number of people, and I see it in the comments. I can't get, by the way, I can't always keep up with the comments. Sometimes someone will say to me, "Did you see that?" Sometimes there are 2,000 comments, sometimes more than that. Plus on multiple posts. Plus you got to remember on different platforms. I see the people. That's a talking point. He was just a podcaster, and what's the big deal? And even it goes back to the. That's exactly right. Political violence will never be tolerated. But I'll tell you, last night in Barrington, there were people that were certainly making the argument, and this coach is one of them, that in certain circumstances, it's warranted, it's called for. He had it coming. That's what this coach, the videos are on this page, this coach, Jeff Turner. That to me, it's so embarrassing to listen to. And they prepared those remarks for him. He just agreed to get up there and read. Why did they allow all these union teachers to be there in all their uniforms? It is. I like that. It is a glorified school shooting. It is, in a sense. And they're not upset because it wasn't just some children. It happened to be the guest speaker. But last week when I talked to Dan McGowan of the Boston Globe, he was talking about when Charlie Kirk was at Brown in 2019 and there were protests against it. But I want to come back, folks. If I believe, if you were a teacher, and especially a high school teacher, where you could talk a little bit about it a little bit more, I think it's one of those times to talk about and really ingrain in the children. You don't have to like him. You don't have to agree with him. You don't have to listen to him. But it is completely unacceptable to then kill the person that is speaking. Was Charlie Kirk dangerous? No. Did he have a weapon? No. Was he there to rob or harm anyone? No. He's sitting under the white tent and he's just, okay, come up. I have some things to say. You want to disagree? That's the whole element of it. So what I think is really lost in Barrington is that was a chance, to me, a blown opportunity, because this stuff admittedly is taking all of the, it's taking all of the oxygen, at least as far as that school is concerned, and maybe, North Kingstown a little bit. So, but what I think is a real missed opportunity is you could have had kids years from now or in college and saying, I remember when Charlie Kirk died and we had, these incredible discussions and the teacher suspended what, the plan lesson was. And I'll never forget. And it really opened my eyes. And as a result of that, I realized that, political violence should never happen. And you just got to be, that's not what they were doing. And that's still not what they're doing in Barrington. Again, it's one thing, this teacher who's a member of the union, and he's a union co-leader in Barrington, he felt, yeah, I can get away with this. That's what it's about, right? That's really what it's about. He felt, yeah, I can say this and get away with it. Our leader is the president of the Rhode Island Senate. So yeah, I can make a video like this. Who's going to tell me, who's going to tell me differently? That's the attitude. So it is absurd, terrible. And I want to come back to that there is no one right now who is remotely, with the exception that I've seen of Representative Mike Chippendale, Republican. He's the only one that I've seen that has said the teacher should be fired. And then today he was saying, I was laughing, he was saying the coach should be fired. But I think Nicole mapped that out pretty well, which is last night that the union, they decided to put on a little show. And they decided to make it about teachers' rights and a chilling effect on teachers. And that's really was their mission in trying to dictate this whole thing. So it is Caroline. And again, yep. Now I also, not to go off on a total tangent, folks, but I couldn't believe late today what I was actually seeing. And those of you that live in the 401, and we have a stake in the outcome of the state. And this headline is really remarkable. And that is, look at that. There's the Secretary of State. Rhode Island won't give Trump administration voter registration list regarding voting. Folks, this, what you want to talk about a red flag. That's why I typed in, what are they hiding? Think how insanity that is. Oh, we're not going to give the administration the voter registration list. What are they hiding? What are you talking about? Number one, they're obviously doing this. What do they have to hide? What are they hiding? Oh, we're not going to give the voter registration. What do you mean you're not going to give the voter registration list? I am telling you right now, what you're looking at right there, this is the battleground. This is the battleground. He was your school teacher. He was in East Providence. Yep. Listen, I've spoken with him. Nice guy. I think that's right. He sent me a nice note when I had cancer surgery. I did an interview with him. But that aside, see, I think this is coming from higher up. He's not making the call on this. Who's behind the curtain saying, we're not giving them that information? We're not giving them that information. I realize, but just look at Rhode Island won't give Trump administration voter registration list. What are you talking about? Florida is handing it over. Texas is handing it over. Tennessee's handing it over. The Carolinas are handing it over. Ohio hands it over. Huh, interesting. How come Rhode Island doesn't want to let the administration see the voter list? What could be on there that they don't want to see? That's right, Caroline. Bingo. Agreed. Oh, no, we're not showing them that. Nope. Folks, it's Caroline, excellent. Agreed. I hear from a lot of people that say they now call him Agreed because from me. Thank you. Welcome. There's Brenda. Yes. So, exactly right. As I put out, folks, and I want you to just think about this just for a moment. You're exactly right, Anne-Marie. Think about this. Let's just step back for a moment. You have, and the rest of it, the media, they play a little bit like, yeah, we're not sure what to make of it. A governor with a 19% approval rating, agreed. And people, why is he running for re-election? You have you're McKee. He has a 19% approval rating. In order to win an election, you need to get 51% of the vote. What would make him think he could go from 19 to 51? It's the voter list. That's right, Bill. Yes, Bill. Think of that. And it's the big mystery. It's the big, yeah. Isn't that amazing? When I say that to other members of the media, they'll say, yeah, it is interesting that he thinks he can. Why do you think that is? Why would someone with the answer is, it's because they plan to manipulate the mail ballots. There's no other reasonable explanation. Let's just be adults for a moment. The election, the primary, is less than 1 year away. The Democrat primary, September of next year. The general will be November of next year. Is Governor McKee going to come up with a concept that is going to bring everyone under his umbrella? No. Is he going to be able to fix the bridge in time? No. Is he going to be able to cut taxes or do things? No. What does he have a policy that would change the perception of him? No. Is there something he would do that would deliver for the state, that would change the way people think about him and feel about his policies, that would alter the landscape? No, none of it. Why would someone with 19% approval rating ever think that they could get to 51%? We know the answer. We know the answer. And I don't need to give analogies. I don't, but it's right there. Oh no, we're not going to give it. Why would you not hand over your voter rolls? What are you afraid of? Well, could have, what do you mean personal data? There are people registered who should not be registered. There are people voting that should not be voting. Secretary of State Greg Amore, he has his eyes on becoming governor, running. Let's just say McKee wins. I think you'd see him run in 2030, 5 years from now. They don't want to change a thing. They want to keep everything intact. We haven't had a Republican win statewide, or even the last time they won a district race. I can tell you, the last Republican to win statewide was Governor Kucheri in 2006. Next year will be the 20-year anniversary. The last time a Republican won a congressional seat was Ron Makeley in 1992. Think how long ago that was. The real answer is they have no interest in changing anything. None. Yep. That is exactly right, Caroline. Notice, folks, do we really need the entire state under construction? No, of course not. Why does every road have to be dug up? It doesn't have to be. No, that's all. Yeah. He's not an opponent. That's just a novelty. I don't give those people, admittedly, I don't give them any attention. I don't. Listen, if you want to run for office, whoever that person may be, why don't you run a campaign? Why don't you run a campaign and see if you can get elected? Right? And then, okay, now you've run a campaign and you've won. But these people, nope, I'm going to start out for governor. It's ridiculous. And they have no management experience. Justin Katz made a good point the other day about that David Morales. He's the progressive. He's going to run for mayor of Providence. He doesn't have any managerial experience. He doesn't know what it's like to manage people, to have a large workforce. It's not easy. You need certain skill sets. You need experience. You need to be able to, it's not easy to do that. People that have never been in a position of power, they don't know how to do something like that. And you can't afford for them to learn on the job. But that coach, coming back, that coach in Barrington, that is disgraceful. And I don't know this guy, clearly got up. They told him to read that. He read it. So this Charlie Kirk, who's a provocateur, those weren't his words. I can tell when somebody's written down their thoughts and then they deliver them as book. I've done that. You can tell me speeches I've given, after dinner speeches, different things like that. I've spoken at schools, all different types of things. You have bullet points. You don't write out, oh, well, here's the thing about this. You don't read it like that unless you didn't write it. And then you're just reading what was written for you. And not only do I believe that, I was told that that's exactly what happened. And then they all applauded wildly. I mean, it's really, really pathetic. Again, the teacher who's on paid leave, I think he will be back. That's one thing. But for this guy, Jeff Turner, to get up and defend him and try to say, well, Charlie Kirk had it coming. And Charlie Kirk, he provoked this teacher. Ryan is right on the money. Yep, probably wrote it. That's probably how it went down. All right. Now, folks, again, I thought it was important to talk about Barrington. I really wanted Nicole on. Nicole Salas is just so fantastic. Yeah, he did. That's at a third grade level. I thought, the one thing about the teacher that did the TikTok videos, right? The one that's on paid leave, he has no notes. He hates Charlie Kirk. He hates President Trump. He hates Republicans. He doesn't need any notes. He's just riffing. Oh, well, bye, Charlie. He's doing the dance. He's celebrating. But this stooge had to read, now pause. Remember, like Biden would be like, now clap. Now look up. Biden, no, now look up. I mean, this guy totally, and it was even perfectly like a perfectly written 3 minutes, little 3-minute speech that the coach gave up. And I'm sure they felt, this way, he's rough. He's not rough and tumble. People are a joke. So, all right. Now listen, everyone, you know the drill. It's 8:15. It's Tuesday night. I think we'll be back on the road tomorrow night. I say that, and then this happened, and then I think it's more important to talk. If something dramatic happened between now and tomorrow morning, we'll be back. But otherwise, again, I want to thank Nicole. Is just brilliant. And as I just want to, this is a difficult time. And teachers, come on, you have a great responsibility with those children in the classroom. And there's something wrong in the system that they feel it's totally, completely acceptable to bash Trump, to bash any Republican, to bash anyone that disagrees with them. In this case, it was bash Charlie Kirk, but it's not about Charlie Kirk. It's about anyone that believes and thinks some of the things that he does, right? They're for open borders. They are so pathetic. And that crowd last night, oh my God, so broken. All right. Listen, everybody, say a prayer. Great job, Nicole Salas. Good night, everyone.